If he's left your life, Deb, now you've got, every Friday night when you go out to dinner, every Saturday night when you get together, or the weekends when you go out of town, you've got that back. Don't sit around and feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes, I think it's important to keep yourself busy by doing those things. It does work as a distraction, even if you are avoiding it, but that's kind of what you have to do.
Hi, I'm Debbie.
I'm Caitlyn. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Oh, she's dating at her age?
No. It's called Dating at Her Age. Oh, those poor things. Hi, it's Debbie and Caitlyn, and we're back for another fascinating conversation about love and dating. And I have been so excited about talking about this because I have accomplished a goal that I didn't think I could actually accomplish, Caitlyn. I got a man out of my brain. A man who'd broken up with me, who I'd been fixating on for weeks. It's turned into months. I finally figured out the secret recipe to getting this guy out of my brain thanks to my therapist. Have you ever had this problem?
Yeah, I think everybody is really excited to learn because when you're attached and you can't, it's hard. So I'm very excited to learn. I need the help.
What's so weird about having a guy stuck on your brain, for me, who dumped me, is it actually makes me so emotional if I'm thinking about him. For example, like I think about him a lot on my drive in the morning. It's dark outside. It's early in the morning. Not a lot going on, and I'm just trying to get situated for my day in the newsroom here at KSL. And he'll pop in my brain. Maybe a song will come on the radio, and I'll just like, oh, I'm thinking about this guy again, and he is living rent free in my head. And there are moments when I will start feeling so emotional, I'll weep as though I've lost a loved one. It's the weirdest thing.
It is a grieving process, actually. That's a great point to bring up. But yeah, no, I think that sharing those emotions is good and getting it out. But yeah, it's like letting go of someone that's gone and you don't know if they're coming back. So
I went to a therapy appointment and my therapist asked me, what do you want to address today? And I said, I got to get this dude out of my brain.
Yeah.
I'm done. It's been over. We're not getting back together. I finally figured out that he's figured out he didn't make a mistake by breaking up with me and he's not coming back.
Are you sure? Because they usually always come back around, and that what makes it a lot harder. The tug and pull.
Yeah. And I kept looking at my phone, and he never sent a text, and he never called. And I'm like, well, I guess he really meant it. He really meant it. So I better get a hint and get my brain sorted out on this. It was taking up way too much of my energy, and it sounds maybe selfish, but it's kind of nice to know I'm not the only one that this happens to, that you've been through it and other people have been through it too.
Yeah, and I think it's just something everyone can relate to, and it's taking up so much of your peace, and that's the best thing that you can do for yourself, because really with either outcome, whether they come back or not, you need to put that energy into yourself and learn how to detach and be without that person. So even if they come back, be like, oh, I'm fine, but maybe I could accommodate you again. But no, you don't want to do that.
About a week before I stepped into my therapist's office and melted into the chair and said, help me forget this man, I had been Googling and done some research on how to forget a guy, how to let him go, how to free my brain and get back that space he's eating up, and also the emotions and the waste of energy. And I found this article on a site called Psych Central, and there were 3 things that it suggested I try. And I want to walk through those 3 things. Obviously, this wasn't an article written for me, but in the moment I felt like, oh my goodness.
For all of us. Listen, I need the tips, please.
So let me bounce these 3 tips that I took away from the article. And then on top of that, I'm going to add a fabulous layer of homework that my therapist gave me to go home and do, that really, honestly, it cured me. It cured me of him, of the disease that was him.
I am up for the challenge. I want the homework assignment.
The homework assignment was like a vaccine. It just took it away. Took away all of my issues.
That's amazing.
It was instant too. It was instant.
I am going to listen very closely to
Okay,
this.
so let me get back to that Psych Central article that gave me these 3 great tips to try, and they really did help. First thing it says is remove reminders of that person. Social media.
Yep, I understand that. Yep.
They said, this can be a trigger. So perhaps hide their, profile. If you're on Facebook and they're on Facebook, but you don't want to block them because that feels...
I unfollow.
Do you unfollow?
Yes, I do that. I've currently done that to somebody because, and it's not that I want to, it's more of like, I don't want to erase them from, see, that's part of the attachment though. That's just me catching that I'm still attached, but my situations are complicated. That's still like, I don't have bad blood. You know what I mean? It's all good, but you just need to not see them pop up, and you can control that a little bit. So
do they know you have unfollowed them?
No.
So there's a way to do that on Facebook,
they
right?
don't know. They know if you delete someone, and
if you block their account,
someone, which is why I don't
report them.
I'm not
to Facebook.
Like petty or anything. I don't want it to become a thing. But for my own mental health, sometimes I feel like I just need to isolate it from my algorithm for a little bit, so I don't get popped up and reminded, because I can kind of control it.
What I do on Facebook, when I've had enough of, and sometimes it's friends too, like the rhetoric and stuff like that. But if I've had enough, there's the 3 dots that are my friend, and you can click on that on their post, and it says like, see less of this.
Yep.
I absolutely take Facebook up on that offer.
No, it's you
and
need
it helps,
to. It does
it'll
help.
kind of silence them for 30 days to detach.
It doesn't trigger you.
The issue with this man who I was dating, he's not on social media.
That makes it almost harder sometimes, because you can't check up on them. But it's also a good thing. But it makes your brain go crazy.
Well, it didn't give me the option to hide or remove him. But he is obviously in my phone contacts.
Yep.
So what I did not block. But what I did do is I removed his name.
Yep.
Because I feel like if you do not want me in your life, then you don't deserve your name in my contact list with a cute little red heart next to it.
These are all the little strings that are still attached.
It sounds so silly.
No, it does not, but not to me.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I've told some folks about doing that, and they thought, well, that's silly. Just block him. Blocking to me was... childish, and we can talk about more on that in another episode. If it gets to a point,
yeah, but I don't think that it's necessary if they're not actively even contacting you. If they are, and they won't, and you've laid out your boundaries that you can't do that, then that's when you would maybe have that discussion.
That was tip 1 from Psych Central. Remove reminders.
Yep.
The second tip was fabulous, and I am guilty of this. You have to, it says, interrupt your fantasies with reality.
Yep. Don't hold on to that potential of what wasn't.
Bingo.
Which we all make up stories in our heads. And you have to really lay down the facts of what the situation is. I relate to that. And it's hard. That's really hard.
I start when I'm driving in the morning, daydreaming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm daydreaming, and then I wake up, finally snap out of it. I'm thinking, how did I get to work? I'm daydreaming about the potential that he's going to float back into my life with his cape on and save the day, and everything's going to be okay. And and by the way, he's totally changed.
Right.
And now we're going to be together forever, and my dating issues are totally solved because now I'm going to be out of the dating game. Psych Central says you have to interrupt your fantasies because they're not based in reality. So
every time you start thinking about that, come back to just be in control of your thoughts. That's a hard thing to do sometimes, but just being in control.
Shake yourself out of it.
Yeah, shake it. I do that all the time, actually. I shake my head when I'm thinking about something that I don't want to be.
Shake your head. Yeah. One of the things that I do, and I've always done this, it's just been therapeutic for me when I'm going through a hard time in my life, or this is TMI, but I had 14 hours of uninterrupted labor with my oldest child when I was delivering her, and I didn't have an epidural. I don't know, they might have given me some ibuprofen. And for women who've been induced, you know that you can just get extreme pain. And the way I would refocus myself from the pain is I would think about the best day of my life. the best day of my life. Now, the problem with that is if it's involved him, you want to think about the second best day of your life.
Yeah.
What I often do is I take myself mentally to a place that I absolutely love. Like, we live in Utah. There are so many beautiful places that I've been by car and on foot, hiking and camping. One of my favorite places is just high above the Salt Lake Valley, where I've hiked many times. And I will visualize that area and me being among the beautiful sunflowers and everything. And that just, again, sounds so silly, but it works.
I understand
It
that.
puts me in a happy place.
Yeah, I understand that.
Instead of going down that rabbit hole of tears and tissues.
Yeah. Or something I've done is I think of things that are much worse, and I'm just like, why am I even thinking about this when I have other problems in my life?
So it keeps dragging you down.
Yeah, well, it's just like, why am I focused so heavily on this small problem that's been bothering me when I have all these other things that whether it's positive or negative, but I just find the things that should be more of a priority to me than something that's not serving me.
So that was a great tip. It's just shake yourself out of it. I love, shake your head. Just shake your head.
I
Like,
do it
what are you
daily.
thinking? Like, snap out of it, girl. That's what I say. Snap out of it, girl.
Yeah, back to earth.
Who are you? That's what I say. Like, remember who you are.
Yeah, that's a good thing to say. Yep.
Remember who you are. And then the third tip that I really love from this Psych Central article is refocusing on yourself.
Yep.
Relationships for me, I didn't. Tell me if you're the same way. I tend to go all in.
Yeah. Well, you should. I mean, most people would think that,
even when they're not all in.
Yeah.
They're not matching my energy.
Put the energy back into yourself. That's how I get through things.
So what goes away when you're focusing on somebody else? All the things that you do for yourself that you need to do.
They're taking, you're giving willingly, but they're taking that, and so you need to bring it back home.
I call it zapping.
Okay.
They're zapping
I've never
me of
heard
my
that,
energy.
but that's good.
They're just zapping.
Yep.
So one of the things that this article says is if you find yourself, you're listening to their favorite bands, you're wearing the jersey of their favorite ball team, and you're engaging and thinking about them and doing things, take that back.
Right.
If it's not your favorite ball team, donate the shirt.
Yeah.
But you have your own favorite music. I know for a fact this man that was camping rent-free in my head does not like Taylor Swift. I loved it because of you. I now love Taylor Swift music. So I can flip over and listen to all of her breakup songs.
Yeah, well, she will help you. So we'll talk about that another day. But
So refocusing yourself, and that means that even investing in things that you want to do for yourself.
Yeah. And I see that as like part of romanticizing your life. Like, remember, what do you do with, it might have been tainted if you took this person with you to do the things that you like, because I've done that. And I'm like, well, I don't want to go to this place because it reminds me of this time that I showed them this. But like, just go back to the root of what you like. Like, I like to just go get a coffee, and I like to go wander around bookstores, and just having like a day to yourself can really just remind you who you are, what you enjoy, and that you don't need to be so drained of this situation.
I have found in this journey to forget and move on, there are 3 things that are really, really important to me in that process. First is time.
Yep.
The distance and the time that has passed from when we last saw each other.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a little bit better when I wake up the next day than I did the day before.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't mean I don't hop back a little bit or, go backwards from time to time and find myself crying and going through a box of Kleenex on the drive in. But I find that time is key. That has healed me.
I agree with that.
Also, my sister told me this years ago, and she had called me and said she'd been listening to Dr. Phil McGraw. And he had said, when you take something out of your life, no matter what it is, you have to replace it with something else. She probably told me that 20 or 25 years ago, Caitlyn.
That makes sense.
And I have followed that rule no matter what it is.
Yeah, I can see that. I could see flaws in doing that by avoidance, but I understand what you're saying.
Well,
yeah, taking your time and putting it somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you take away a relationship, and I don't mean replacing it with another relationship.
Right. That's where my brain was going. I was like, I see flaws in that, but then I understood
Absolutely
you could replace
not.
it with an activity for yourself or something like that.
I've been guilty of that in my 20s.
Yeah.
And that is the worst thing I could have done.
I understand how people do that, but I also don't understand how people can do that.
We can talk about that another time. I
just can't even imagine.
I have deep regrets about doing that in my 20s. It came too easy to me, and I broke hearts, and I regret that. That's for another day.
Yeah.
Debbie's confession.
We should talk about that because it's not something that I do.
No,
I have a hard time.
I'm not the same person I was. I don't even. That's a totally different discussion for another day because that does go deep when you do that, to not only to yourself but to somebody else. But the idea being, he's left your life. This is me talking to myself. He's left your life, Deb. Now you've got, every Friday night when you go out to dinner, or every Saturday night when you get together, or the weekends when you go out of town, you've got that back. Don't sit around and feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah,
Get going,
very
girl.
Important. Do
Book
things.
trips.
And sometimes, I think it's important to keep yourself busy by doing those things. It does work as a distraction, even if you are avoiding it. But that's kind of what you have to do.
Even if it's sleeping in.
Yeah.
Taking an everything shower.
And I think you just have to follow all those earlier steps as well as removing the reminders, because that's when you when you get downtime, you start looking on their social media or like, oh, what are they doing? And then you're just retaching yourself. So
now the third thing that I'm going to add to this list is what my therapist assigned to me for homework after that therapy session. I'm going to tell you what that homework assignment was, and I will walk you through it. To me, this was the moment that I realized I can absolutely get somebody out of my brain like that. I just have to do the homework. Next.
Welcome back to Dating at Her Age. This is Caitlyn, and Deb is sharing some amazing tips on how to get a man out of your brain. After the relationship's ended, or somewhat ended, however it's ended for you might be messy, but how to detach from that. And this is something I think so many people need help with. It's hard.
I found myself just spiraling. I was spiraling at work. I was spiraling at home because I was so fixated on the idea that, he's going to figure out that breaking up with me was the wrong thing to do. I'm the perfect person for him.
Newsflash, he probably is actually thinking these things. I'm not being delusional. But you have to know your worth and realize that you don't just get to be there when they want. So I need to know how to detach, and so I don't have to even be tempted to entertain it.
He verbally said it's over.
Good enough.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah, he told me. And what I mean by verbally, at least he didn't ghost me.
Yeah, honestly, I respect that. I respect that. Believe them when they say it or show it. That's great.
So I want to talk about the homework assignment that my therapist gave me after I'd melted into the chair in his office. And he said, Debbie, what do we want to talk about today? And I said, well, we want to talk about him because I've got to get this guy out of my brain. He's taking up way too much space and emotion. And I have to focus on other things like my life, my career. I have adult kids that I want to be focused on and doing things for them. So help me, doc. Get this guy out of my brain. Mm-hmm. So we had a great therapy session and we talked about several things. And one of the things that came out in that was that I wasn't getting anything out of the relationship. Ultimately, I just wasn't. Except for a free dinner once in a while.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't. So my doctor put it like this, and then I'll tell you the homework assignment that he assigned me to go home and do. And then I brought it back to him the next time we had a session together. He said this. He said, Debbie, if you showed up to work every day and you never got paid, you never got rewarded with a paycheck, or you didn't get anything, what would you do? Well, I'd quit.
Yeah.
Right? I've been hired to work. I expect a paycheck. I would quit. He said, you wouldn't even hesitate to quit, right? I said, well, I might talk to the boss, and if the paycheck never showed up, then I'd quit. He said, how many times have you had a conversation with this person about what your needs are? 200 or 300? Is that a lot?
Yeah.
Should I give him a few more hundred tries? That's the honest to goodness truth, it was dozens and dozens of times. And not to where I was whining about it, but it was just be like, hey, let's
understood.
Could you let me know if you want, you want to. He understood, right? I mean, hundreds of times, a bit hyperbole, but it was enough that it was clear what I would need out of the relationship. And he said, so my therapist said, then why are you allowing this in your personal life when you wouldn't allow it in your professional life?
That's a really good tip.
Caitlyn, it was a light bulb moment for me.
Never thought about that before. I mean, I guess in context, but that's
if you
not
showed
that
up to
specific.
work and never got paid, you would quit. If you were never rewarded at the office for your hard work and what you're putting into that relationship or that partnership, you would quit. But in your personal life, you're willing to put up with
whatever. Yeah. That reminds me of just a quote I just want to mention. I saw a quote the other day and it said, don't reward inconsistency with loyalty. And that just kind of defines a situationship there, but just that anything that's like not really serving you, you don't get to reward it with your, genuine care. And so I think that kind of applies there. Yeah, it stuck with me. I just remembered it because it stood out to me a lot.
Say that again.
Don't reward inconsistency with loyalty. And I am the most loyal person out there.
Of course you are. You really are.
Because it's hard. I care. I don't want to just be, I'm not a mean person. But yeah, and so sometimes when you have to be that and really take these steps and set your boundaries, it's hard. So.
And when I wrapped up that therapy session, at the last 5 minutes, my therapist said, I'm going to give you a homework assignment. And I thought, oh no, not homework. It's the best homework assignment I've ever had to improve my personal life and how I think about relationships that have ended. And he said this, and he said, you are a journalist by trade. You have been a journalist since you were 19 years old. That's true. I have been. He said, you are probably really good at interviewing people. I like to think I am.
Yeah.
By now. He said, I want you to go home and I want you to write down a series of questions that as a journalist, you would ask somebody in your situation. And after I wrote down these questions, I don't feel like you have to be a journalist to do this assignment. You can rip off my questions or you can make your own questions. He said, you're going to sit down and interview yourself.
Yeah.
You are going to write these questions down and then you're going to respond to them. And I did. And I sat there 2 days later with a list of questions and out loud. And I didn't record it or anything, which maybe I should have. But I wrote down my answers as I was saying them out loud so I could hear myself and then I could reference them and I can reference them later.
Yeah.
Because I find I am very good at forgetting and forgiving and moving on and like resetting the script as though everything played out in my favor.
Yeah.
So here are some of the examples of questions that I wrote down and I answered. And it was astonishing to me what that relationship was doing to me, but I was so fixated on the idea of being together with somebody that I was willing to put myself through this. And I didn't realize it until I saw it, heard it coming out of my mouth and putting it on paper. So the first question I asked was kind of a question that a lot of reporters, I've been a reporter my whole life, get made fun of for asking. But I thought it was a really important question. It was really basic. How does he make you feel? How does he make you feel?
Well, that's a good question.
Here's what I wrote down. Anxiety ridden.
Yeah.
Sad. Used for convenience. Dismissed. Small. Lonely. Okay. That shocked me.
Well, and I think that's important when you ask that question. You want to go because you can cloud it's okay to write down the positives as well. But I think that first instinct of how you feel right when you say that is what you write down, and you don't want to cloud that with anything because sometimes they do make you feel loved or happy or seen. But the first instinct, nervous, anxious, that's a sign and it's a big telling sign.
And that's why I wrote it down because I want to be able to, when I have those weak moments, when I start fantasizing that he's going to show up at my door with 20 dozen roses and everything's going to be okay, is I want to remind myself I was in a situation that was not healthy for me. Then I backed it up with a question that I had to provide proof to myself. Do you have examples of what you just pointed out. And then I listed, I probably have 20 different examples, bullet points here, and I won't go into all of them. But it goes on and on and on. The second question was, what has it been like in your life since you've been away from him?
Peaceful.
Freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just understand kind of the situation. Yeah.
I wrote this down, and maybe some folks don't know what Stockholm Syndrome is, but it's when now look, there wasn't abuse going on in this relationship, but Stockholm Syndrome is when you become compliant, or you become sympathetic to the person who is trying to control you. And it's based on a crime that happened where people were kidnapped and they became sympathetic to their kidnappers. And I hope I'm remembering that correctly. But I said I almost like I had a light version of Stockholm Syndrome, that I was so controlled by the idea of being loved.
Yep.
Here's another question I asked myself. What am I looking for out of me?
That's an interesting one.
Right? I mean, these are all, and you can craft the questions however you want.
These are great. They're great, but
But these are just, these are just the ones that I wrote. And I said, to learn a skill to say no and not accept.
Yeah.
When somebody is inconsistent. To learn how to stay friendly in case I ever bumped into him again, without consistently fantasizing that it's going to materialize into something that it shouldn't be. And this took me about an hour to an hour and a half on a Saturday morning. And there's a whole lot of different questions you could ask yourself. Absolutely anything.
Yeah.
I walked away from that and I set it down. I picked it up a few times, but by Monday morning, I came into work, I saw you, and I said, I'm cured. I feel so much better.
Well, I'm going to go home and do that as well. I think that's just a really good way to separate the facts from the delusion, and like kind of that little invisible string, if I'll quote Taylor Swift, but just the attachment that's kind of that you're holding on to so hard, but just really bringing it down to earth and asking those specific questions and kind of hearing from yourself on the other side is, I think saying it out loud is actually a very important thing, because when you hear yourself say these things out loud, it makes it real. And that's how you really feel instead of just being in your head. So those are some very good questions.
I find it's really important. I don't keep a diary. There's been a few times in my life when I have, but I find it's really important to write it down and keep it, because it is so easy to move past it and forget how we felt in the moment.
And that's something that's helped me when I've been so really frustrated with situations and I feel like I haven't been able to get closure, just because they kind of don't let you sometimes, and just in certain situations, not all, but writing it down in like a letter to them, or just writing down your own thoughts, it helps like you really understand where you're at, and then eventually you kind of get to that same place of like the reality here and why it's not serving you, and you can kind of release it on your own instead of having to rely on somebody else to owe you a conversation to move on, because you don't have to have that. Would it be nice? Great. But it just doesn't happen sometimes, and you don't have to have that, and you just have to work through it on your own, and that's writing it down is very key, in my opinion.
So have I heard from him since this went down?
What did I say earlier? They always come back. I
have. Next episode, let's talk about, did I ghost him? Should I ghost him? Should I block him?
Ooh, I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well, I'm relying on you to give me advice on what to do.
I'm weak in those situations as well, because sometimes so much time passes that like you kind of get over the anger a little bit, and you're just like, you want it to be a good feeling situation even if it's not active. So like I end up getting a little weak after so much time has passed, because I'm just like, just don't want to be in a negative headspace, and I'll end up kind of caving in and just accommodating. But and that's when you have to pull out your list of things. and reminders.
You said it best.
Yeah.
That list will save you from caving. Mm-hmm. It saved me from caving. Let's talk about that next time. Our favorite moment of the podcast is always our Dater Hater segment. And we're going to talk about overly filtered photos on dating apps. What are your initial reactions when you see somebody on a dating app and you suspect that their photo has been extremely filtered, Caitlyn?
I just think, who are you trying to fool? Inauthentic. And we're talking AI generated is a little bit different from just a filter, like, changing the color scheme and stuff like that. AI generated photos, I think, are so common, and they're so subtle at times that you don't even know that it's taking place, but it can completely change the way that you look.
So I categorize filtered photos in different lanes. Like, I think Instagram filters for photos can enhance the color. Like, if you take pictures of wildflowers and you want to make it more pink, I have no issues with that. I don't even have an issue with you swipe over a filter to soften your look. I have a much different opinion of filtered photos on dating apps. And if you are using AI to generate your photos and you don't even look anything like yourself, why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, who am I? I want to know who I'm meeting in person for a lot of reasons. First of all, for my safety, I want to be able to point you out of a crowd. And I also want to know that you're real. Are you genuine? Are you leaning into who you are and what you look like? And at my age, which of course is late 50s, men are not going to, and nor should we look, men and women are not going to look like we look like we're in our 20s and 30s. And if you are overly filtering your photos or using AI, artificial intelligence, to generate photos, I think you're starting off the potential relationship on the wrong foot.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do nowadays. It's just, I see it as another way of catfishing. Like, just maybe not as full, like it's still you, but it's a different version of you. And it's just inauthentic. And if your goal is to meet this person, eventually they're going to know what you look like, but you're just trying to catch the bait and get them to stop on your picture and grab their attention. And I just think that it's not how it should be.
You spied this article on TechCrunch.com, and the headline is, Bumble users can now report profiles that use AI-generated photos. I don't know how I'm going to spot an AI-generated photo. I'm not an AI expert, but I have used an AI-generated app to see what I would look like. And my daughter actually is in her 20s. She helped me use it, and she sent me the photos. I'm like, whoa. It's like, that's pretty wild. Amazing. Yeah. But I do report what I feel are potentially fake profiles to Bumble. I'm not quite sure I'm educated enough on what AI looks like.
I can give you a tip. Do you want me to give it to you now? Or you want
I
me
would
to save?
love it. No,
well, okay.
Go for it.
And I think that it can look different on everybody. But how I spot it when I'm like, this looks like a little polished, you zoom in on the eyes and you can tell that it's a little shifted. The eyes can tell you. And it's just because...
How so?
Well, it's hard to explain just on audio. I feel like I need to show, but you just zoom in and they almost look a little bit more pixelated, or just they look like they're expanded a little bit and they just don't look like a real eye. That's how I can tell sometimes.
Well, we have a Dating at Her Age Facebook page and Instagram page, and we have a TikTok page. Is there a way for you to...
I will do it.
Oh, and we could post it there?
Yeah.
And you could, like, a picture of you, just you, and then a picture of you AI generated?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll do it soon.
I love that.
But I've actually tested this out because I see people I know, and I think I've mentioned this in our first podcast episode, that I see people I know using these filters or just these apps. There's an app called Facetune, an app called FaceApp. They're different ones, but they allow you to make subtle changes or very drastic changes.
Are they AI apps?
Yes.
Okay.
They're so subtle if you do it that way that it looks like you, but it just looks like a very polished, advanced version of you. But I've tested this out. Because I wanted to see how much more engagement I got with an AI generated picture of me that's more enhanced, because it makes me look prettier. It does. I'm not going to say it doesn't. It makes you feel better, but compared to just a regular selfie that I would post, because I do not like doing that. Like, it just feels inauthentic to me. I'm the type of person. You don't
like using an app to enhance, look like you had plastic surgery or something.
I will edit pictures like filters, and because I'm a photographer, I love editing and stuff like that. But changing the face structure.
I mean, what would life be today if we couldn't heal up a zit on our face?
Sometimes
right?
I do that. I don't really do that on selfies, but I've done that in Photoshop.
Oh,
if I've taken portrait, if it's a portrait,
you get
or
a
something
selfie.
like that.
You get a great selfie on a day where you have a pimple on your nose.
Yeah,
I might. I might use the heel effect
for sure. That's different
to patch it up and make the pimple go away.
With someone with extensive acne their entire life, I'm definitely guilty of doing that as well. But that's not changing your face structure. That's not changing the way your eyes look. So that's different.
So when you did this test, a selfie of you, just a selfie of Caitlyn, as she is, beautiful as ever, of course, and then you ran it through an AI generator. What were the differences that you noticed?
I got loads and loads. This is on social media, not a dating app, but loads and loads of likes and comments, way more than I normally
get. With an
AI
generated photo.
I later posted the comparison because I was like, I was testing this out, and so I just wanted to see what happened. And I got so many comments. It was unbelievable how many more comments I got praising the way that
But nobody knew you were using the AI app.
Not most people, but some people catch on because they've learned what they kind of look like. Your eyes just look different.
What
mostly.
was your takeaway when you started seeing the likes come in on the AI generated photo?
Just really, social media is fake and nobody really knows what is happening. We're putting fake things on social media, but also dating apps. It's the same thing to me. I feel like dating apps are kind of like a social media. So we're not authentic as much anymore. And I think I try to be the best that I can. I'm the type of person who posts messy, fun pictures when I just wake up because I don't care. But it makes me worry about the younger generation, I think, because this is what they're seeing. They're seeing the fakes, the fake sculpted pictures of people. And when it comes to dating, it's just so inauthentic, and it's really just that's probably the problem with why we can't find authentic connection these days, because we're starting off on the wrong foot.
So Bumble has this new feature where you can report if you detect there's an AI generated photo of somebody on their site. I'm curious, I would love to know how many people ultimately report. Again, I don't think I'm an AI expert enough to be able to spot which photos are AI generated and which aren't. I guess for me, when I show up to a first date, I would hope that these look somewhat like their pictures. But that then makes me sound shallow too. I am basing whether I'll meet you on a first date as to whether I like your photos or not. But I do look at this as also, like I said, a safety issue. I can't just show up to a date and have somebody I don't even recognize there, or photos, which I do. I screen grab the photos on the dating sites and I send them to my posse of my surveillance team posse, which is usually my kids and some close friends who know that I'm going to be out on this date with this man, and I can't have them be, if I vanish off the face of the planet, the only photo they have of a guy is a fake picture that's been AI generated. So that's unnerving for me. But I think the larger issue, it goes to why are you doing that? Eventually somebody is there. You're going to connect with somebody on a dating app. You're going to meet them in person, and you're already starting off the relationship. You don't even look like your photos. Yeah. And I mean, maybe I wonder if you're listening to this and you have a take on that, 801-575-5599, because that actually just made me think, if you've used AI generated apps or whatever, why have you done that? And do you feel it's just because part of me, when you were just explaining that, was I do think that dating apps are extremely overpopulated and oversaturated, that maybe you do have to do something to stand out from the crowd a little bit. I do think guys can maybe catch on to that, but it's so easy to fool. And for the safety aspect of that, like I said, you can make yourself look different slightly, but you can also change the way you look completely. So it actually could be a big safety concern. This is why we have a podcast called Dating at Her Age, because I think dating apps might be oversaturated at your age, in your 20s and 30s. But I see a lot of the same guys, and I'm sure the guys who are on the app are shaking their head. If they're listening, they see a lot of the same women in our 50s over and over again. We haven't connected with anybody, so here we are back on the app again. This idea, though, that we're using, again, I don't mind a filter. If you want to filter out a pimple, if you want to use the swipe filter that's on Instagram, that doesn't bother me at all. If you're using an AI generated photo that makes you look like you basically have had plastic surgery, that's just, I'm not interested. And I think a lot of women I know my age who are in the dating game would say the same exact thing. We're not interested in men who feel like they have to be something other than they are. And so I have dated through the years men who are bald or balding, and it's interesting to me that they tend to be really self-conscious about that. So what are you going to do? Go in and use an AI generator to grow hair, and then I'm going to show up and you're going to be bald? I happen to think bald and balding men are extremely sexy. So I think we may be judging what others think of us without really knowing what they think of us. I would expect that a man my age, and older and even younger could be balding. I mean, that happens.
Well, people at 30 are balding. It's
just
fine.
Like I'm gray underneath this hair color that I put on every 5 weeks. I mean, we get older, things like that happen. I think you just lean into it and own it.
You should.
And love yourself for it, and then let somebody else fall in love with you for it.
Yeah, I think that the best way to find a true connection is just being authentic to yourself. It's very tempting to play with the apps. Maybe people are just thinking, oh, this is obvious, I'm just going to play with this and do this, but keep it off the dating apps probably, because that's where I'm trying to find the real you. But yeah, I can see how easy it is to fall into it, but it's just gotten so out of hand that it's hard to tell. It's insane to me.
Well, when a major dating app recognizes that they need to have an outlet for people to report AI generated,
it's a problem.
Yeah, and it could also help cut down on the number of fake profiles that are out there on the app, because if people are out there, scammers are out there creating fake profiles to catfish men and women who are legitimately on the app to use it, and they don't know that they're liking these fake profiles, but these AI generated photos make it look like they're liking a real person. That creates it just creates a big mess for the people who are legitimately on the dating app. So it could be a great way to catch the catfish, but I'm not going to run home and download an AI generator and try to figure out how to manipulate my face so I look different.
Yeah, no.
If you don't see who I am and like who I am based on the app, and then get to know me in person and like me for all of those reasons, then it's not going to work out anyway.
Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Let's give out the phone number again for our Dater Hater episodes.
Dater Hater.
If you have a dater hater moment that you would love for us to share on the air, there's a phone number to call. We have a hotline for that, and it is
801-575-5599. Please give us a call. We want to hear from you.
801-575-5599. And again, you can catch Caitlyn's AI-generated photos compared to the real Caitlyn on any of our platforms, which is our Facebook, Dating at Her Age page, Instagram page, again, Dating at Her Age, or on TikTok.
Yep. And next week on Dating at Her Age, we are going to talk about ghosting. So stay tuned for that.